לגבי שאלתך שלא דנו פה במהי ספרות, או ספרות וקבלה, ההרגשה שלי שהולכים לספרות כי פוחדים להתמודד עם המיסטיקה של עצמה. זה החרדה מפני המיסטיקה, אז הולכים למודלים של ספרות. טוב, זו רק הייתה הערת אגב, ניקח נשימה עמוקה כפי שאמרת, ונעבור למעשה למי שיחתום את הכנס היפה והמרתק והעמוק הזה, פרופסור ג'ואל הקר. פרופסור ג'ואל הקר הוא פרופסור למיסטיקה יהודית, והוא מלמד ב-Reconstructionist Rabbinical College. הוא המחבר של כרך 11 וכרך 12 של מהדורת פריצקר של הזוהר עם נתן וולסקי. הוא חיבר חיבור חשוב שתמיד אני ממליץ לסטודנטים לקרוא אותו, כאשר אנחנו עוסקים באוכל בכלל ובספר הזוהר, Mystical Bodies, Mystical Meals על האכילה בספר, בקבלה הזוהרית. היום הוא ירצה בפנינו על הנושא לאינון, על ה'בושה. ה'בושה כאמצעי רטורי בעיצוב דרשות המוסר בספרות הזוהר. בבקשה.
אז אולי זה יעזור לנו לקלוט את המסר שלו על הרוגז. ואני עוד מעט אני אתחיל ברוגז, אבל אני גם כן רוצה להגיד שעכשיו אנחנו בסוף מושב נעילה, וכרגיל בנעילה אנחנו מחכים לסוף, וגם כאן. אבל יש שתי הבדלות. אחד, זה שאנחנו כבר אכלנו, אז לא, אין לנו כאב בבטן. והשנייה זה שהנעילה מסיימת בצאת הכוכבים. ואני מבטיח לכם שאני אסיים גם לפני צאת הכוכבים, אפילו לפני שקיעה. Woe to those who sleep, slumber in their sockets, unaware, unmindful. Woe to them. Who will plead for them? Woe to human beings who do not know, consider, or see. They are all obtuse, unaware. Woe to the wicked who do not know and do not care, unaware of how to protect themselves from sin. Woe to the closed-minded, closed-hearted, and shut-eyed. Are you scared yet? What is the literary effect upon a reader who reads these words of caution, woe unto those? It's like a traffic accident in which people slow down to gawk, the lurid and morbid desire to see what happened to them, and unconsciously thinking, could that happen to me? Part of us might even be thinking judgmentally, woe unto those who were driving too fast, or woe unto those who were drinking and driving. It's reminiscent of the paintings of Hieronymus Bosch, Dutch painter of the late 15th century, whose graphic descriptions of hell were intent on invoking the fear of God in each individual, prompting them to turn away from the material pleasures of life. So, what is the effect of these words? They serve as an invitation to the reader. Don't be like those people, rather be like our group. That is the group that thinks rightly or behaves rightly. In other words, as in the paintings by Bosch, humanity becomes divided into two factions, the righteous and the wicked. Shame is the tool that is used to effect that othering. But woe unto them is also an invitation to read further. So we hear woe unto them and we think, uh-oh, I better find out what I got to watch out for. Think too about how our present moment of the Me Too movement has demonstrated the cultural and political effectiveness of the deployment of shame. Before our eyes, we have seen how shame has had the power to fell the mighty and presumably to incite fear in those who have transgressed but have not yet been exposed. Shame is a blunt tool, too, as on social media it is female victims far more than male predators who suffer public shaming. The Zohar is the central and canonical text of Jewish mysticism, and the phrase woe unto them, voilon, appears many dozens of times there, and it acts as a rhetorical instrument cultivating a pietistic group identity through the objectifying of an other that does not fit that mold. In these instances, a certain style of pious living is evoked as the insurance policy, so that woe unto them does not become woe unto us. At the same time, there is another kind of literary shaming that takes place in the Zohar. This second type is more rarefied, distinguishing regular Kabbalists from enigmatic hidden ones. This style of shaming occurs in narratives in which the concealed mystic drops his disguise, revealing the secrets of both the Torah and of his own identity. My purpose today will be to identify these two different rhetorical shaming devices and to consider A, the different effects they have upon the reader, B, the different contents they warn about and at the same time entice with, and C, the ways in which this rhetoric falls under the larger rubric of shame in Zoharic Kabbalah. The most obvious way in which shame is deployed is through the pathos-filled declarations from the heavenly voices who lament Voilon, whose eyes are stuck in their sockets and such like, a critique of dormant spirits whose apathy is itself shameful. These bombastic blasts target the 13th century Castilian community's ritual laxity and blinkered spirituality, critiquing the courtier class and its rabbinic leadership. While much of the ire is directed to spiritual sluggishness, the attack also extends to the framing of cultural vice, guilt, and the need for atonement. These voices perform and thus construct in the reader's consciousness an awareness of the panoptical gaze, to use Foucault's term, the sense that you are always being watched, the panoptical gaze that enfolds everyone, both as observers and observed. Let us turn our attention to some of the woe unto them texts to determine the values that this style of shaming is appealing to. Here is a small sampling. Oops. How do we do this? Here we go. First from the Babylonian Talmud in Masechet Chagiga, Yud Bet Amud Bet. Rabbi Yossi says, woe unto them, the creations who see and know not what they see, who stand and know not upon what they stand. So on this, based on that particular passage, that many of these violons that we have in the Zohar are basing themselves upon. Rabbi Yossi, there in the Gemara, proceeds to cite a string of verses, ultimately proving that the world is held up by God's hands, while the Talmudic text engages a series of cosmological models in the same discussions. It talks about all of the Rikki'im that are part of and the quality of those different Rikki'im. It is only this one that puts God in the center and that has the pietistic emphasis with its rhetorical warnings of woe unto them. In the second one, now turning to the Zohar, Rabbi Yossi again, woe to the wicked who, having sinned, refuse to return to the Blessed Holy One while still in the world. For when a person returns regretting his sins, the Blessed Holy One forgives him. But all those who cling to their sins, refusing to return to the Blessed Holy One, will eventually fall into hell, never to be raised. Here we see the most basic type of Zoharic pietistic goals. Chazor b'tshuva, v'akol yeh beseder. Many of the Zoharic passages with the woe unto them formula warn about the impossibility of escaping Duma and its horrors unless we repent to and return to God. In the next passage, woe to those wicked ones, for they will not rise from the dead to stand at judgment, as is written, they were obliterated, and similarly you have obliterated their name forever and ever, for they will not rise even to stand at judgment. And later on the same folio, woe to the wicked, I should say it like an evangelist, woe to the wicked who sin and provoke their Lord every day, who through their sins repel Shekhinah from earth, making her disappear from the world. In these two closely spaced passages, you have to watch evangelicals or listen to evangelicals and you'll get it. In these two closely spaced passages, there are two vastly different outcomes. In the first, you go to hell and you stay there. The second sin, however, is theurgic. Their sins provoke God, causing Shekhinah to leave the world. This impacts all of humanity, because without God's presence on earth in the form of Shekhinah, we are utterly unprotected. This particular passage appears in Parashat Noach, when in fact most of the world was unprotected. Turning to our hero, Rabbi Shimon said, "Woe to human beings who do not know, consider, or see. They are all obtuse, unaware how filled the world is of strange, invisible creatures, of hidden things. If the eye were empowered to see, humans would be amazed how they themselves can endure." This admonition is based on a Talmudic statement that if we could see the demons that were teeming all around us, we could not endure. Rabbi Shimon, however, turns it into a statement about the life that pulsates in everything all around. Here, ignorance is rejected. Curiosity is elevated. The Talmudic version sees the lack of vision as protective. Here, it's seen as an invitation to look deeper. The next one, Rabbi Elazar said, "Woe to the wicked who do not know and do not care." These comments refer to this one, actually. "Unaware of how to protect themselves from sin, the Blessed Holy One's actions are true, his way just, yet he does nothing in the world without first revealing it to the righteous, so that people will have no pretext to complain." So here it's where we see this emphasis, just be curious. Think, what am I supposed to be doing? Rather than being smug, being content. If only people would live righteously, God would guide them. The wicked don't stand a chance. Here it is, we see the contrast that I referred to at the outset. We are invited to identify with the righteous or to aspire to become like them, and to avoid being like the wicked, even to castigate them. The group identity formation is clear.
קשה לך כשאתה מקריא קצת יותר לאט.
אוקיי, בסדר. אני רק דואג על הזמן, אבל בסדר גמור.
תפסת מרובה, לא תפסת.
כן, אני מסכים איתך. אוקיי, בסדר גמור.
יש עוד עד 1,000 שבועות.
לא, יש לי מטוס מחר בבוקר. If you are wise for yourself. If you scoff, you alone will suffer. Woe to the wicked of the world who neither know nor consider words of Torah. And if they do consider, since they lack intelligence, words of Torah appear to them entirely empty and worthless, all because they're empty-headed. For all words of Torah are entirely precious. All those closed-minded, closed-hearted fools, upon seeing words of Torah, as if it weren't bad enough that they are unaware, they actually claim that those words are defective, worthless. Woe to them. Oops. When the Blessed Holy One avenges the humiliation of Torah, and they are inflicted with the punishments for rebelling against their Lord. This attack conveys a critique of 13th century radical rationalists who read the Torah critically and challenged its divine origin and authority. Even seemingly strange passages are to be understood through a mystical lens. While the passage does not indicate explicitly that it is mystical knowledge that the wicked lack, in the context of the anti-rationalist attack, the intent is clear. Sometimes we see, when we look at h'busha throughout the Zohar, we see that shame is a value in and of itself. Frequently, Zoharic passages dealing with shame will contrast those who are filled with shame with those who are shameless. The following passage treats the tzitz, the medallion of the high priest, which was of the Kohen Gadol, which was a gold plate worn on the forehead of the Kohen Gadol over his turban, bearing the inscription, Kodesh Lashem, holy to Hashem. All those people who are shameless have no portion in the world that is coming. All those brazen-faced among Israel, when they would gaze upon the letters of the holy name that were on the tzitz of the holy diadem of the high priest, became brokenhearted and examined their deeds. The tzitz existed miraculously, for whoever looked at it felt ashamed of his deeds. In this text, the phrase brazen-faced renders takif mitzcha, literally of harsh forehead, and is associated here with the tzitz worn on the Kohen Gadol's forehead. Two foreheads, eat v'eat. Significantly, the looking that one does is described with the verb latsutz, to peek, intimately associating the verb latsutz and its object, the tzitz. The wickedness of the tzkifei mitzrad, of the brazen, those with a harsh forehead, is undone by the tzitz on the Kohen Gadol's forehead. In this instance, the binary of the two foreheads, that of the Kohen Gadol and that of the brazen, illustrates the desirability of shame in the Zohar's economy of affect. Okay. Well, there we go. In all of these woe unto them scenarios, one's subjectivity is constituted as both judger and judged. As one seeks to be on the side of those warning, we want to be those people that are saying, woe unto you, lest we become a member of the party of woe unto us. I want to shift gears now and to talk about the other kind of rhetoric of shame that I was talking about, or the other literary stagings of shame that I referred to. In a story that opens up Midrash HaNe'elam al Shir Shirim in Zohar Chadash with Rabbi Berechia, and in the story of the Saba and the Yanuka, we might want to ask, what is the tone and content of the critiques that we see there? And what do they expect of regular folks? What do they expect of rabbis and leaders when they try to induce shame? So at the beginning of Midrash HaNe'elam al Shir Shirim, Rabbi Berechia quizzes his visitor, Wochenoto, B'Tanach, Mishnah, Tosefta, Agadah, finding that he knows nothing. The man falls asleep by the door and Rabbi Berechia sneers, he and the dog can dine together. For this is what Rabbi Manyumi, I've got this here. This is what Rabbi Manyumi, the elder from Gush Chalva, said. What is the meaning of the dogs or azei nefesh, impudent, incapable of understanding? These are the ignoramuses, the amei haaretz, or azei fanim, brazen-faced like a dog. Brazen-faced like a dog? What does this mean? That they are incapable of understanding. For the Blessed Holy One, Kutchabrichu does not cause his holiness to dwell in their midst. Hence, they are called impudent, and that is why he and the dog should eat together. Guy stumbles into town, Rabbi Berechia brings him in, and the guy fails the test. Doesn't seem to know any mikra, any mishnah, v'chulei. And then he falls asleep. Rabbi Berechia says, okay, fine. Hu yasheni ma'akelev, yochali ma'akelev. And then the man wakes up, delivers a sophisticated mystical discourse, shaming his host into the realization that in fact he, Rabbi Berechia, was the arrogant one, and that knowledge is not material that we accumulate for bechinot shel bagruyot, but rather the ability to perceive the hidden nature of things. All of Rabbi Berechia's disdain is thus reflected back upon him. Similar interactions occur with the Saba, who is perceived by Rabbi Yossi, who has employed him for the day as a donkey driver. Rabbi Yossi thinks he's an imbecile, and he delivers to Rabbi Chia, who he encounters that evening in the Malon, a series of slurs about the Saba's foolishness. Soon enough, as is Moshe Mukar le'harbe meitanu, Rabbi Yossi's critiques are upended as the old man begins to expound upon the most recondite Kabbalistic topics. And Rabbi Yossi is now scorched by the brilliance of the old man's insight. One other famous interaction occurs in the main episode with the Yanuka, the Zohar's Wunderkind. Son of a widowed innkeeper, he welcomes his guests with derision, noting that they hadn't even said Kriyat Shema that day, a mitzvah so rudimentary that even children are taught to say it. These rabbis expect little from a boy who is probably 9 or 10 or maybe 11 years old, but he quickly outstrips them in his knowledge of Kabbalistic lore, shaming them as he displays that he, shehu yoter gever mimenu, and he has more weapons, that is, divrei Torah, than they have. In all of these instances, and many more, tables are turned and puffed up rabbis are belittled for being out of their depth. In the competition of Kabbalists, put your money on the underdogs, lest you be shamed by them. These people in their very beings, as pointed out by Ronit Meroz in her Biografia Ruchanit of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, are themselves enigmas. And what these narratives play out is that one gets shamed by that which is concealed. While we enjoy the ironies in these different scenarios, what underlies them all is a social style of quick judgments based on interpretation of human subjects, treated as objects for diagnosis according to metrics of righteousness and wickedness. What results is a convergence of hermeneutics and shaming, as the Zohar's community of Kabbalists and mild sinners are urged to uncover the stain within themselves, but especially in others. ועכשיו, בגלל שאין מוקדם ומאוחר בתורה, אז אני צריך לדפדף קצת. Martha Nussbaum draws attention to the way in which shame is often experienced by those who reject vulnerability. And this appears to fit the Talmudic Rabbi Hanina's model of how everyone in Olam Haba is scorched by the chuppah of his fellow. Nussbaum argues that any ideal to which one holds oneself has shame as its permanent possibility. What I have termed, I'm continuing with her quote, what I have termed primitive shame, the demand for perfection, and the consequent inability to tolerate any lack of control or imperfection, is a specific type of shame closely connected with narcissism or infantile omnipotence. Further, she contends, unquote, that the proximity of shame to disgust, which sets us at a distance from our own animality and mortality, takes other personas and groups as its object. Turning to other theoretical frameworks for thinking about shame, in order to situate the Zohar theoretically, shame is commonly defined as an emotion that arises as a result of one's being seen to have some essential internal flaw. That seeing can either be objectively the case or anticipated by the person feeling that emotion. Exposure of a flaw, whether real or imagined, produces the experience of being unworthy. The feeling of shame is conventionally theorized as distinct from that of guilt. Shame results from some inherent flaw, resulting in an overwhelming experience of inability to escape, while guilt is related to chet, to a transgressive act, something that can be rectified through atonement. In comparing shame and guilt, theorists have long regarded shame as a primitive emotion, reflective of a person's self-assessment in relation to community norms, whereas guilt is superior, as it evinces a person's relationship to an abstract net set of ethical norms. Bernard Williams, Carlin Barton, and others have offered critiques of that distinction based on their analyses of shame in ancient Roman society and literature. I propose that in the Zohar, these two feelings overlap, since guilt implies a defect within the soul itself. A sinful act actually causes damage to the self, and as a result, the internal and external, inherent and performative, are aligned. And to conclude shortly, you always say that to the audience, 5 minutes before you're done, so that they think that, the end is coming. Though discredited for some of his personal prejudices, Max Shaler wrote about, quote, the restrained gaze that ensouls others, sam nefesh b'tocham, and the shameless gaze that desouls them, unquote. David Frederick picks up this line of thinking when he writes that, quote, ancient Roman public life demanded a willingness to be on display, to be seen, and therefore to be vulnerable. Before this public gaze, one must retain a sense of shame. Moreover, one must also become a witness to oneself, allowing the look one directs at oneself to inhibit and control one's behavior. Similarly, Carlin Barton, writing about ancient Rome, says that, quote, one of the rewards for our own shame, for treating other persons and things in awe, for restraining the desire to look, to invade with the eyes, is that we find ourselves in a world with depth, in a world where the visible surface, the facade or mask, expresses rather than hides an infinite profundity. And since Nathaniel referred to his book, in my first book I write about masks. It is reverence that first allows us to glimpse into the deep well of worth in the world, whereas shamelessness must ever content itself with a world whose value is skin deep. The Romans were conscious of the paradox of the sacred. It was shame that made the holy. The person with a sense of shame was acutely aware of the potential for the most sacred parts of him or herself to become, with a glance, the most shameful parts, eat ve'it. In various ways, Zoharic literature also adopts shame as a frightening yet depth-providing feeling, instilling irreverence and awe, when in our regular lives, surface often predominates. From a literary perspective, we see two rhetorical styles in these two different sets of texts that I was talking about. One of sincerity and of earnestness, and another of irony, where there's potential for moving from one stage to the other. In the woe unto them material, the harsh dualism locates the reader on one side or another, and one has to leap from one side to another, rather than being gently told, you don't know it all. There's a little bit more that you have to uncover. And it is these two different models of shame that, and perhaps others as well, as further research will uncover, that I'm happy to have presented today. Thank you.
תודה רבה. כן, בבקשה.
תודה רבה, באמת מרתק. אני רוצה לשאול שאלה שאולי קשורה גם להרצאה הקודמת ולחזור באמת לעניין הזה של מיסטיקה יהודית או קבלה מול ספרות. ספרות, לפחות לפי הגדרה שלך, אנחנו מבינים כחלק מן המרחב החילוני. כלומר, משהו שקשור כבר לרומנטיקה או למודרנה. את המיסטיקה אנחנו משייכים לאיזשהו מרחב של קדושה. עכשיו, שניכם באיזשהו מובן עשיתם שימוש בכלים ספרותיים פואטיים, הזהרה, או אתה דיברת, כן, גם על ה-literary advice, על מנת לבחון את הזוהר, כן, או טקסטים שקשורים במרחב של הזוהר. ואני שואלת באיזה מידה זה מאפשר לכם להתרחק מהמרחב של הדיוויין של הקדושה, ובעצם לעשות מעין פסיכולוגיזציה, גם של הבושה וגם של הכעס לצורך העניין.
אז אני לא זוכר מי זה היה. I don't remember who it was. There was somebody today who was talking about about psychologization serving as a reductive tool in, was it Shlomi that was talking about it being a kind of reductive tool. I'm not sure, first of all, I'm not sure that this is a psychologization to be using literary methods. But second of all, אין מה לעשות.
No, whether it's a kind of...
So, look, הייתי בחור ישיבה, and I'm also a חוקר בקבלה, and יש השפעה רבה על החיים הרוחניים שלי והדתיים שלי מן הקבלה, וזה כמו שאני אומר לתלמידיי, כשאני מלמד אותם את הרמב"ם, ואיך שהאלוקות של הרמב"ם, אלוהים של הרמב"ם, שהוא לא שומע לתפילות, הוא לא מקשיב לנו, הוא לא חושב על מה שקורה לבני אדם. ואני אומר להם, כשאני מתפלל 18, אז אל תיקחו אותי ותשאלו אותי, מה, אתה חושב שהשם מקשיב לך? כשאני פונה אליו עם כל המשאלות שלו? אני מתפלל, זה 18. אני צריך להתפלל ולבקש ממנו. And this is not a simple bifurcation that takes place. I think that the human being is a complex entity. And to say, well, once you are thinking intellectually in a certain way, that means everything will be reduced to that intellectual kind of activity, or that intellectual conception of things, I think is underestimates the complexity of what we are.
כן,
קודם כל אני צריך לומר שמאוד נהניתי עם שתי הרצאות שהיה בהם משהו דומה. אני מסכים עם מה ששיחה אמרה, היה משהו דומה, הרצאות מאוד מאוד שונות, והיה גם משהו שניהלתם פה שיחה. אני כל הזמן דווקא בהרצאה שלך, דווקא בגלל שהעשן היה יותר מדי ברור מבחוץ, הייתי מאוד עסוק בכל הזמן שדיברת בפנימי ובחיצוני, ומה קורה בפנימי ומה קורה בחוץ, ובשאלה עד כמה באמת יש דין בחשבון למה שקורה בחוץ. עכשיו, לא קראתי לזה פסיכולוגי. לא הייתי משום מה, כי דווקא מתאים לי לחשוב על זה, בכלל לא חשבתי פסיכולוגי, אלא במובן שלכאורה כשאני קורא את ספר הזוהר, שזה קורא דבר כזה, אז האקסטרנל, החיצוני, הוא מאוד, כן, הוא כן שייך לעולם של ספירות, של עולם מסוים שנמצא מול העיניים, ואיכשהו, אצלך זה מאוד, בעיניי מאוד בלט, זה התעמם. הצד המיסטי, לא מיסטי, הצד התיאוסופי, הצד המאוד קונקרטי של על איזה אקסטרנל, על איזה חיצוני אני מדבר. וכשענית למיכל, כאילו אני הרגשתי שהתחמקת מהשאלה הזאת.
סליחה, מה זה התחמקת?
You avoided.
avoided.
וזה הנקודה?
כן, זה כאילו אתה יכול, תתייחס לזה, זה לא, אין לי פה...
אולי אפשר לעזור?
בשמחה. Is this my only lifeline that I get to take?
לא, אני רוצה לומר משהו, כי אנחנו בסיום הכנס, וישבתי פה, אני רציתי לשמוע שתי הרצאות שלכם, ונשארתי פה והייתי בכל הכנס, ואני רוצה לומר על ככה התחושה שלי שלפעמים אנחנו לא מבינים כאילו את העולם הקבלי, יש לנו איזו פרי-קונספציה על מה זה קדושה, וגם מה זה מיסטיקה, וגם מה זה קבלה. למשל, מאוד חזר על עצמו פה בכנס, שכשיש משהו מסתורי, אין סוף, אין ראשית, זה כמעט חזר בכל ההרצאות, משהו שאי אפשר להגיע אליו, זה פה עכשיו טקסט מיסטי. ואני חושבת שאנחנו לא ככה, לפחות אני לא ככה רואה את הטקסטים המיסטיים הזוהריים, אני לא תופסת את הקדושה באופן הנומינוזי, אני לא תופסת את הסמל באופן ששולם תופס אותו ה-ineffable. יש מאמר מאוד מאוד יפה של אבי אלקיים הזה, שהסמל הקבלי הוא בכלל, הוא ביצועי, הוא מחובר לחיים, הוא מזמין לפעולה, הוא לא מזמין לעמוד ככה, כן, הכריכה בעברית כן, על הקדושה של אוטו, היא ככה זוג ידיים, ככה תשאר מדמיין איזה נבירה עומדת ככה. זה לא הקדושה היהודית. גבר מקדש אישה, עושים קידוש על יין, כלומר, יש פה, אנחנו קצת באים עם מיסקונספציה, המורה שלי, פרופסור משה יגל, כותב על זה הרבה, אנחנו קצת באים עם מיסקונספציה שלה, וגם שולם ככה, הוא מראה את זה, בא עם מיסקונספציה של המיסטי, כאילו שזה באמת מופרד, ומשהו שאתה עומד בפניו, ואתה... יש בזה היבט כזה, אבל זה לא כל הסיפור, זה לא המיסטיקה שלמשל אותי מעניינת. אני מעוניינת במתח הזה שיש בין החיים לבין המיסטי. ולכן שאנחנו חוקרים באופן ספרותי את הקבלה, ואנחנו כמעט כל החוקרים היום בקבלה עושים את זה, אנחנו חושבים שהמיסטיקה והחיים והשירה והתורה זה ביחד, זאת אומרת, אפשר לחקור את זה בפסיכולוגיה, אפשר בספרות. אני מסכימה עם מה שהיום, שלומי, אתה דיברת, כן, על הסיפור הזה של הפסיכולוגיזציה, לפעמים מעקרת ומסרסת, וגם בהערה שלך עכשיו על הספרותי, אבי, שזה כאילו לא נותן למיסטי לפרוץ בפני עצמו. אני מסכימה לזה, זאת אומרת, צריך לעשות את זה בזהירות. אבל זה לא שאנחנו בעולם הקדושה המיסטי של הזוהר, זה הספירות והתיאוסופיה, יש פה אנשים, זה רבי שמעון בר יוחאי, הוא הולך בדרך, הוא רואה אנשים, יש קנאות, יש שנאות, יש פסוקים, יש עץ, יש ליליץ, יש סטרא אחרא, יש שדים כמו שראינו היום. העולם הזה הרבה יותר רוכש, וההפרדה בין הקדוש לטמא והנשגב והתחתון, אני חושבת שהיא קצת דיכוטומית מדי, נוקשה מדי, קצת מסרסת את החשיבה שלנו, אנחנו צריכים הרבה יותר להיפתח כשאנחנו, כך להבנתי, כשאנחנו מסתכלים על הדברים האלה.
I also, if I could just add one thing, is that
אני פשוט שואלת על הספרותי, זה הכל, זה מה שמעניין. ועדיין, מה? זה הכל? אבל לא, אם הכל הוא הכל, אנחנו לא עשינו כלום. אנחנו פה כדי לעשות משהו בתוך הכל הזה.
So then I have a question, to ask back is, if it's literary, why is that psychologization?
לא אמרתי שזה... היה לי רושם שברגע שאתה מתחיל לדבר על הבושה כמשהו פנימי שמתרחש בתוך הגוף או בתוך הנפש, כן, מהלכי נפש, אתה חושבת שלזה גם חנוך כיוון, אז משהו מתעמם, כן, כפי שאתה דיברת בעצם על הכעס בשלב מסוים, משהו מתעמם בקשר הזה שבין האדם לאלוהיו ולאותו תחום של כן, הדיוויין. ואותי מעניין שוב, כאשר אני חושבת על הפורמליסטים או על הרומנטיקנים, כן, מכאן התחלנו את הדיון, ואגב הוא עלה גם בבוקר בהרצאה של חביבה פדאיה, והדיון בקפקא ובורכס ובאתיה הופמן שהוזכר וכן הלאה, בקט. זאת אומרת, הרגע המיסטי בתוך הספרות והרגע הספרותי בתוך המיסטיקה. מה ההבדל ביניהם? זה מה שעושים מעניין. אם יש הבדל, ואז איך זה מתקשר להרצאות שלכם, שאתם...
I think that the distinction between, what's obvious is that the distinction between psychology and, say, metaphysics doesn't exist in the Zohar.
Mm-hmm.
So that you talk about psychologization is an anachronism that applies to the Zohar. For the Zohar, everything that happens at one level happens in every level. Everything that happens inside you is also happening inside the cosmos, inside the divine. It's happening on all levels, so that the distinction itself is an alien grid to place in the Zohar. So it may be true of Hasidut. People speak about the psychologization, maybe that happens, but that's hundreds of years later in the modern era. In the Zohar, the differences don't exist, and to the extent that those differences have crept up during the years, they refuse them. So that something going on with you is also going on with God. And I think that the word that I think of, and this relates to literary, the Zohar's literariness invites us to participate in the life of God. It's hishtatfut, hishtatfuta b'lashon aramit, if that helps, right? It's participation, hishtatfut. So God has a biography in the Zohar, which he does not have in the Rambam, right? Of course, he has one in the Tanakh, but not in the Rambam. God has no biography. Nothing happens up there. Nothing happened, right? In the Zohar, God is filled with drama. God has a wife. They split up. They get back together. He chases her into hell. She's kidnapped by the devil. There's a drama, and the Zohar says, what is our role? Is to participate in the drama, and that's why the literary is crucial. It's a drama. It's a literary genre. When you put on, when I go back to the kavanah of tefillin that I mentioned before, you put on tefillin and you're participating in the drama of the divine couple. Are you binding them together, or are you binding together Sama'el and Lili? You are actually participating. So it's not Ha'adam ve'Elohav. It's one cosmos in which we're participating in one drama that's happening on a lot of different levels. And so that's why the literary and the mystical, the mystical is a funny word, right? It's the literary and the mythological. We're living mythological. We're living within the story. That's how I would put it. So it's not a psychology.
It's not just the feeling. Everything you say,
everything. Just give it an example. Yes, every single thing, every act. Yes.
It's more mythology, like Greek mythology, than the Kabbalah. And, as you described it, it's like the mythology, the concurrence between the gods and between the...
To the extent that the word mystical is relevant, it's the Malila Elner Escher was talking about this history. It's the hitnotzutzu. In order to feel that your daily life is a participation in the divine drama, there's a mystical dimension to that. That means when I shake your hand, right, I feel the hitnotzutzut of the various stadim of the cosmos that we're uniting. Right? That's the mystical, is the hitnotzutzut.
I wouldn't shake his hand if I read it.
Sparkling. So you feel the metaphysical sparkling in the everyday. Or if I turn my back to you, the hefech, right? There's a hitnotzutzut of a kera, kera kosmi.
אבי, מה אתה אומר? מה יש לך לומר על העניין?
באמת, אני שותף לדברים שאת אמרת, באמת. אבל אני פה, המקום של המיסטיקה בתוך האקדמיה, אכן האופן ההתבוננות דרך ספרות או פסיכולוגיה הוא מחיצה בפני המיסטיקה. כלומר, אנחנו שמים מחיצה של מודלים תיאורטיים, הם פסיכולוגיים או ספרותיים, ואני חושש לאור המחקרים האחרונים שאני קורא על ספר הזוהר, שאנחנו, הייתי אומר, בורחים מהסוד או לא מתמודדים עם הסוד, אלא בוחרים לנו דרכים עוקפות כדי לקרוא או להתמודד עם המסתורין, עם הסוד של הזוהר. כך אני מרגיש.
עוד שאלות?
טוב, אז נחתום. תודה רבה לכם, לכל האחים.